Chapter 1, My Early Encounters, Awakening Humanity. In Chapter 1 of my book, Awakening Humanity, Our Place Among Extraterrestrials and Angels, I share my earliest encounters with extraterrestrial beings, experiences beginning in childhood that helped shape my understanding of multidimensional life, telepathic communication, and humanity's broader place within an intergalactic reality. These first-hand memories are shared not as speculation, but as lived experience, offering a grounded and compassionate perspective on benevolent, non-human intelligence and the spiritual guidance that would later help contribute to my life's work, teaching the truths from A Course in Miracles. Childhood Encounter, 1987, The Gray-Blue Being. My first memory of an extraterrestrial experience happened sometime in 1987 when I was about 12 years old. As I recall, I lay down for sleep one night just as any other. The next thing I remember, I woke to find myself floating upwards in a tube, a bluish light. I looked to my right, and there was a being floating next to me, holding my hand. He was small, somewhere between only 3 or 4 feet tall. His head barely came up past my waist. His skin was a light bluish gray, and he had large dark eyes, a thin line for a mouth, and a small nose. I noticed his hands had only 3 fingers and a thumb, and he was also wearing clothes, a one-piece dark blue jumpsuit that fit him closely, like a second skin. He also had a strange golden insignia affixed to the left side of his chest. I peered at it closely for a moment, thinking it was a name tag, but it was not. It was a small, narrow emblem of some sort. It looked like a circle with a boomerang or V flying from right to left through the middle. As I floated upward, I noticed that, though this situation should have been extremely distressing, I felt completely calm and safe. I looked down into the small being's eyes. His face radiated kindness, love, and compassion, though he had nearly no expression except a slight upward curve at the corners of his mouth. Love and peace simply emanated from him, and it encompassed me. I found the situation altogether enjoyable. Once we reached the top of the bluish tube of light, we entered what was most certainly a spacecraft. As I looked around, I could see about 12 other small beings staring at me. As they realized who we were, they instantly turned back to their work. I could sense that they wanted to speak to me, but were instructed not to interact, lest they disturb my sense of peace and calm. This information came to me as an inner knowing. No words were spoken. The spacecraft was round and had a very large viewing window, out of which I could see only stars and the dark night sky. There was also what appeared to be a control console encompassing the entire inside of the craft. Parts of it were lit with symbols and lights that had no meaning to me, while other areas were entirely dark. My small companion and I approached a dark section of the console. He then telepathically asked me to place my hand on it. I asked him why. He seemed hesitant, almost embarrassed, to explain to me that there had been some sort of oversight, through no fault of my own, and that they forgot to remove my energetic signature from the ship before I embarked on my current human life. This locked them out of some of their scientific functions, and now they were bringing me directly to their ship to unlock these functions because they were in need of access to them. I then telepathically asked the small gray-blue being, how in the world did my energetic signature get into his ship to begin with? He told me that I had been a part of their team, before my human life. I felt only mild disbelief at this, but was not as shocked as I should have been, because I was still immersed in a deep feeling of peaceful love and security. I decided to just move on and ask the being where I was supposed to put my hand. The entire console was dark. There were no buttons, no markings whatsoever, and I was confused as to what to do. Keep in mind that this experience happened to me around 1987. I had never heard of a touchscreen or seen a smartphone. If such technology existed, it hadn't become mainstream yet. The small being gently took my right hand, spreading my fingers apart. He then carefully placed it on the console, and the entire dark area immediately lit up with strange symbols and lights. It seemed our task was now complete, and we re-entered the bluish tube of light to begin our descent. The next thing I remember, I was standing in the middle of my bedroom in the dark. I turned on my light to check that I was alone, then ran to my bed, feeling disturbed, wondering about who I might have been in a past life and what the whole encounter meant. In hindsight, I couldn't say I felt fear or any form of trauma from this experience. The feeling of love and security that emanated from the small gray-blue being had left me with only the memory of a peaceful encounter. I had no grounds on which to justify any perceived malignancy from them. The praying mantis being, telepathic teaching. I had a couple of other memorable encounters over my teen years. Once I found myself aboard a round ship similar to the one just mentioned. This time there was only one being on board with me. His body was medium-sized, with sandpaper-colored skin and large dark eyes. He was also wearing odd clothes, a white robe that concealed his body, and a tall white hat. At first, it reminded me of the type of headpiece one typically sees the Catholic Pope wear, but as I looked closer, I could see it was actually white wrapping that covered the long, oblong shape of his head. I felt these coverings were being used to conceal his body so he would not look so strange to me. His hands were held in front of his chest in a curved, insect-like way, his long fingers reminding me of a praying mantis. I can also recall how he smelled, like a mixture of sandalwood incense and burnt matches. We were flying over my hometown and the surrounding countryside. As I looked down on the beautiful night scene of the familiar river valley below, the being began to speak to me. We leaned in close to each other, our foreheads nearly touching as I listened carefully, for I knew he was telling me something very important. His voice was soft and whispery, sounding very thin, as though he was not used to speaking. He was also using telepathic communication in conjunction with his audible words, which felt to me as though he was really trying to embed what he was saying into my mind, using both means of communication as a sort of backup. At the end of the conversation, he told me I would not remember his words until they were needed. Next thing I knew, I found myself once again standing in the dark, in the middle of my bedroom. I quickly rushed to bed, deciding the whole thing was just a dream. Even so, I thought about the experience many times throughout my life, trying my hardest to remember what the extraterrestrial had told me. As before, I felt no fear during the encounter. The being felt like a dear old friend I'd known for a long time. On one other occasion, I woke to find myself aboard yet the same type of round spacecraft, flying over my family's farm. I could see by the moonlight the horses grazing in the pasture and my family's house and the barns below. There were 5 small gray-blue beings on board, and I could sense they were young. They excitedly told me they brought me aboard just to show me they'd made it through training and now had their own spacecraft. I was bewildered as to why they would share such information with me. It not only seemed strange, but almost comical. Why were they telling me this? They then explained that I had had a hand in their training program in a different dimension of time and space, and that one day, when my memory returned, I would feel proud of their achievement. This encounter was short, and I woke in my bed this time. I am certain there have been more encounters than just these 3. These are only the few I can remember clearly enough from my childhood to describe. Many mornings throughout my teen years, I woke with disjointed, vague memories of images of large, dark, extraterrestrial eyes and a faded sense of having been somewhere during the night. UFO sighting in 1992, a shared witness. Before adulthood, I had one fully awake experience where I actually saw flying UFOs with another eyewitness. This happened in 1992 when I was 17 years old, while being driven home from a movie date by my boyfriend at the time. We were driving on a country road with open fields on either side. The ridge of the river bluff was coming up in front of us, and we were slowing down for the stop sign at the approaching T intersection. As I happened to look out my passenger's side window, I saw a large light in the sky about 50 feet off the ground out in the field. I turned to my then boyfriend to ask him what he thought it was, only to see 2 more lights outside his driver's side window only about 20 feet from our truck. The lights flew in tandem next to us until we stopped at the intersection. Then they shot straight forward at lightning speed and stopped to hover mid-air over the open river valley about 20 yards in front of us. The 2 lights then jettisoned at a ridiculous speed straight up into the air and disappeared. We then turned to look for the first light I saw hovering over the field to my right. It was still there, and we sat and watched it for about a minute before it too suddenly shot straight up into the sky and disappeared. It may be significant to note that the field where this sighting took place was owned by my grandparents at the time, and 7 years later my husband, not the young man I was dating during the sighting, and I bought the property in 1999 and built our house there, where we still live to this day. After my teen years, all UFO and extraterrestrial activity seemed to come to a standstill. As I continued to explore all paranormal and spiritual phenomena, as well as develop my ability to hear within, I often wondered why such encounters had ceased. Once, during meditation, I was answered with, "To give you time to catch up to us." My impression was that the extraterrestrials were instructed to leave me alone while I deepened my spiritual education. The Vision of a Past Life Memory, 2014. There was no extraterrestrial contact for the next 22 years, from 1992 on until March 2nd, 2014. On this date, I had one of the most remarkable experiences of my life. That night, I woke to use the bathroom at 4 a.m., and as I laid back down to go to sleep, I experienced an extensive waking vision which lasted for 1 hour. It was the memory of my past life during the time of Jesus. I was told by my inner guide that I was ready to have this memory returned to me. This happened exactly 7 months to the day from when I first began the 365 workbook lessons from A Course in Miracles. After the vision, I lay there wide awake, my mind filled with thoughts about what I had just witnessed. It had been like watching a movie in my head, and there was much to think about. It was not a life I had expected, nor a person I was proud to have been. It is not appropriate to share the story in its entirety here, as it digresses too far from the topic at hand. However, suffice it to say, I was a mean-tempered, dishonest merchant fisherman who found his way to God merely by experiencing a moment of eye contact with the man Jesus. You can read the entire story of my past life during the time of Jesus' vision in the link below this video in the description. Once this remarkable vision was complete, I looked at the clock. It was now 5 a.m., and I had to get up in 1 hour to get ready for work. I figured there was no way I was getting any more sleep. Yet, the second I closed my eyes, I was dreaming. I dreamt I was standing outside in the backyard of my current home, looking up at the night sky. Then suddenly, I saw a round spaceship hovering overhead. It sent me loving greetings, which I received within my mind. Then it moved on. Another one took its place. Then came another and another, each somewhat different in form and style, but all bringing me the exact same warm, loving greetings. I felt nothing but peace and love as I watched this strange procession unfold, but I was also confused. Why were they greeting me like this? Why were they welcoming me? Who were they? After about 20 of them had passed overhead, the last one paused before disappearing like the rest. This last ship lit up its entire bottom with a beautiful collection of rainbow-colored lights. Then I heard, telepathically, a different message from this ship. It told me I was being welcomed back into the collective intergalactic consciousness of the universe soon, and they were all pleased to incorporate me when that time came. What? I woke up with a start. I was filled with a sense of joy at this message. I had a feeling of happy anticipation for this event, though I had no idea what such a thing entailed or when it would be. There was no extraterrestrial activity again until 6 years later. You can continue the journey in Awakening Humanity, Our Place Among Extraterrestrials and Angels. You'll find links to the book and other chapters that I share in the description below. Thank you and bless you.